Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
Rocco, you're back.
Yes, I am, my friend. I appreciate it. This is what, number 4?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course, man.
Yeah, so just so you know, right off the bat here, I'm healthy and fine. I got a scratchy throat today. I slept with the air conditioner, an extra air conditioner. We got the air conditioning, old house, and we have an extra air conditioner. I'm like, yeah, I'll make it really nice and frigid in here. And this morning I woke up like, that was not a good idea, especially on day of a show. So if my voice cracks, that's the reason why.
Hey, man, you sound good to me.
So much to talk about. Again, I'm asking you the same question that I did when you were here last time.
Yeah.
How are you maneuvering the pandemic?
Very well, actually, I would
Good
say.
for you.
So, I mean, when I was here last time, right, it was a challenge because I'm an extrovert. I like to be around people. I like to be out and about.
Yeah.
Now, things have shifted a little bit. I had to take a step back and say, you know what? Because I was really, really diving deep into the politics of it, into the data, and just like getting so ingrained in the news cycle. I had to pull back a little bit and say, you know what, this is driving me batshit crazy. And I just started focusing on the things I needed to do in my life, or my business, or my family, and really just put the blinders on. And by doing that, that has really helped me throughout all of this, because you can go down so many different roads with trying to figure out what's going on. And I think a lot of people have, and I think it's created a lot of confusion in the world, a lot of, fear, a lot of discontent. I've just had to say, you know what, I could get down in all that or pull myself back. And I just chose to pull back a little bit and just live my life and understand what's going on around me, but not focus on what's going on around me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the bigger picture question,
Yeah.
but I want to talk more specific with you too. You're also a dad,
Yeah.
and obviously a husband as well.
Yep.
So you have that role in your life that so many of us do, and how do we disseminate information? Fortunate for me, my children are older. They've got their own minds. You have a son, Gabe, I think, who's 19?
He'll be 19 in September.
19,
Man,
yeah.
it's scary. I just learned this past week, like, that he drinks and has. I'm like, wait, who is this kid?
I'm probably going to find this out tomorrow about my 19-year-old too, so I get it. And it's Ellie and Melina.
Yep,
Is that correct?
that's correct.
I mean, I always mispronounce Melina's name.
Yeah.
They are younger.
Yeah, Ellie will be 11 next
Right,
month.
right.
Actually, 2 days before my birthday, and then Melina just turned 7 in May.
So talk to me about maneuvering information, because I'm sure you're getting questions. Any parent would at this point. I had to do something similar with friends of mine's children during 9/11. My children, I kind of lucked out. I guess if it's luck, my kids were very young.
Yeah.
My son was like, same as yours.
Yeah,
Your son was playing. So you didn't have any big problems there having to explain to any child, and because we were trying to figure it out ourselves, right?
I still remember where I was at that moment. It's so, I could picture it to this day how surreal it was.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, I was sitting in law school. I was in law school in the lounge. It was we had on-campus interviews. So if you did well your first year, you had on-campus interviews with the firms. I was coming out of an on-campus interview and walked into the lounge, and it was dead silent, like eerie
Quiet.
And it was always packed. There was people around talking.
Okay.
I walked out and I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Right.
And everybody's watching the TV. And it's right when the plane hit the towers. And
So
I remember
you saw it on TV.
We saw the aftermath.
Okay,
I did.
okay.
People may have watched it. And I remember dead silence, and the dean came out and just told everybody to go home. And we had and that was 8 days after my son was born.
Wow.
So it was just like, holy shit, I just came out of an interview for a job.
Yeah.
I have an 8-day-old son. A building just blew up. What the hell was going on? So it was I didn't have to maneuver it with kids like I do now, but that was just an eerie moment in my life, man.
The high stress. How do you relate that? Obviously, there was not the immediacy.
Of course.
With this, it kind of evolved. It was like a slow-moving train almost. right? I mean, that's what I say to people. Everybody laughs the same exact way.
No, that's a great way to explain it. It was a slow-moving train.
Big-ass train.
Yeah. I mean, and to your question, and I think that's an important one, because it was hard to navigate with them. There wasn't, because I have certain viewpoints, right? Mm-hmm. My views may differ from someone else's. So, of course, I'm going to impart my viewpoint on my children.
Sure.
So throughout this, and luckily my wife has been really good with them. She kind of handled the homeschooling. She took the brunt of the load because I'm working and trying to run my businesses and do it from my basement when I was locked down.
Right.
So explaining it to them, like, I will tell you this, they want to go back to school. My kids are dying to go back to school. They're dying to hang out with their friends. They're dying to be back to normal.
Sure.
So what we've done in explaining it to them is that, look, it is what it is. It's a virus. It's something. You have to be careful, and you have to do the things you normally do, like don't be a gross kid, wash your hands, don't sneeze on people. But I don't want my kids living from a place of fear. So I made sure with them that, not that I downplayed it, but I made them understand that it'll be okay in the end. Because that's all they want. I mean, kids look at parents for
completely
safety, protection, and guidance.
Yep.
So there were moments with myself where I found myself getting angry and frustrated, and in front of them, where I had to stop myself. And luckily,
I think every parent has faced that, right?
But I try, because it's hard. It's hard with daughters, and my son's. He's going. What sucks for him is he's going to college to play football, and he may not have a season this year.
Yeah.
Now he's playing D3, so he's not going to redshirt. He's not going to stay another year to play. So he's missing out a year of football, something he loves to do.
Sure.
With the girls, I just wanted them to know that, look, it is what it is. We will get through it. Life will get back to normal, and not to be afraid. Because if kids live from a place of fear, I think it impacts everything else in their life. So I've tried to keep the fear out of our house. I just tried to say, look, it is what it is, but downplay it almost, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
Probably something very similar.
Yeah.
And the sensitivity part of it is that I'm guessing we're probably wired similar. That when we see something just is so logical and it's so destructive to the economy, our way of life, when we see it's being handled in a weird way, it doesn't really match what we deem to be logical.
Yeah.
We talk about it. We're verbal. We express ourselves. And I would find myself constantly having to be very careful how I would.
That was the challenge.
I bet.
That was the challenge.
I would have that
could
problem.
Talk to it with my wife in a certain way, with clients or friends in a certain way. With my kids, I was sometimes finding myself diving into that conversation with them, where I had to pull back, like, wait a minute. They're 7 and 10. They don't understand this logic or lack of logic is what I would say. So I had to just basically say that, look, we have to do what we have to do. The government put some orders in place. We have to follow suit, but this is not going to be forever. They're just being cautious about things. Then in the back of my mind, like you said, I'm a logical person. At first, it made sense, and then as things evolved, a lot of stuff didn't make sense anymore. So I had to, in explaining it to them, I had to really distill it down to just little pieces of it.
No question.
And not get into the big picture, because it didn't make sense to me. So if something doesn't make sense to me, I can't explain it to someone. I can't explain it to an adult, let alone a child. It's a different way of speaking, a different way of disseminating information. I couldn't do it. So I had to keep them comfortable, keep them happy, keep them in a positive mindset. That was the whole goal through this, was just to keep their spirits high, keep them positive, not let the fear in our house, not let that negativity in our house, and do what I had to do to make sure they were optimistic about the future.
Yeah, because they probably obviously cannot disseminate anything they catch on the television, on a glance, even on a glance.
No.
And they can't rationalize that. So there's a lot of fear out there for a child. They doesn't know how to deal with that. Right? I mean,
I
wouldn't know how to deal with it.
Well, and I
still can't deal with it.
I knew that it was happening too much when my youngest daughter, Melina, who's literally me and a 7-year-old, and she's a ball buster. She she would make comments that I would make about the politics of it. Not knowing what she's saying, she would just repeat things I was saying. So that was kind of my clue. Like, I've got to just take a step back, you know. Like, if I would get mad at it for it, I'd be like, oh, you know, Governor Wolf, he's an idiot. And then my daughter would come down and see him on TV. She'd say, Governor Wolf's an idiot. I'm like, well, I shouldn't have said that. I didn't agree with one of his policies. I'm not saying the man himself is an idiot. He's an intelligent man. So that's when I kind of had to take that step back and say, let's just focus on mindset, keeping them happy, keeping them positive, and giving them hope for the future. That's really what it's about.
Are you reading anything new during this time, or do you find yourself going back and rereading?
I've done a lot of rereading.
Okay.
I'm actually reading a really good book right now it's called Agent of Influence. It's written by a spy about how to use spy technique and spycraft in business. It's in a phenomenal book.
Is this new?
I think it's a newer one. His name's Jason Hansen's the author.
Okay.
I'm engulfed in the book. I just started reading it 2 days ago, and it's phenomenal because as I'm reading, I'm like, okay, those are kind of, not that I'm a spy, but those are kind of things I think about when I'm talking to people, like how their feet are positioned, how their shoulders are positioned, kind of reading a room. And I'm realizing that's spycraft. And he gets into a lot more detail about it and how to use it in a business sense. Phenomenal book. I use this time, I read a lot of books about building my business, my law practice. And then I started going back to some of the old ones. You know, one that I tend to reread quite a bit is the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene.
Yeah.
I would just pick that up.
There's a couple great ones.
I mean, the new one,
Mastery.
Mastery, yeah, that's a thick one. And then there's another one. It's orange and blue, just like the
48 Laws of Power.
48 Laws of Power. It's the same color of that book. I can't remember what it's called though, but I started reading. I'll read it here and there. But the 48 Laws of Power, that's one I always go back to.
You read a pretty good book with the rapper 50 Cent. You familiar with that?
No, I didn't read that one. No,
actually, I was surprised how good that was. Yeah, I'd recommend that for sure.
Okay.
A lot of high achievers I've noticed too, both from observation on this show, once they realized what was going on with the pandemic, then put their game face on and then went into survival mode. Might be a little heavy, but we're going to make this productive time.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think enough people have done that, unfortunately. Sure. But your high achievers that I've had the opportunity to speak with have done that. At what point did you get your sea legs? Did it take you a week or two? Because it took me a couple.
I mean, it took me. I mean, so there's two sides of that for me, right? There's the business side, and then there's the actual motivation, personal development side.
Okay.
Business side, I had the sea legs from the beginning. I was running. I was busier. This has been my busiest year in my law practice. It didn't slow down for me through the pandemic, so I was hammering home just business. But the problem was, I didn't have a line drawn in the sand between business and personal development. I was just focusing on work all the time because I was in my house. I didn't know what time of day it was. I would just go into my basement in the morning, work out, and then start working, and then it'd be 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, what the hell happened? Probably about a month in, I said, you know what? I've got to start drawing these lines in the sand where this is work time. This is time I got to get back to focusing on me. Because I felt my mindset shifting, that it was just, I was work focused. I wasn't focusing on future development or personal development or future thinking. I was just in that grind moment, and that wasn't good for me.
Okay.
That caused a lot of stress. So it was about a month where I really started saying, you know what, I'm going to take an hour and a half, 2 hours a day and just read and develop my skills. And I really focused a lot on, one, mental clarity and mental strength, but also skills for my business. Because that's something that it kind of goes in ways, but I spent, 45 minutes to an hour every day just reading about the law and new skills and new things I can do to just develop myself as a better lawyer.
Okay.
Which was extremely helpful over these past couple months. So, and it's something I didn't always do. Like I'm constantly up to date on the law, but this was like, I want to learn something new. So I'll just dive into a new topic area, a new practice area. So that's kind of how I approached this time, which was really, it was a lot of fun, and it's created good habits for me moving forward.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you is a little further down the page, but he got there already. And we've kind of talked about this, but maybe not so succinct. that a word? Is that a proper word?
I think
Succinct?
So. Yeah, I think so.
In front of an attorney, I'm doing pretty well. And I hope I'm articulating this the way what I want to convey to you. Do you think that this pandemic has exposed all of us, in varying degrees, obviously, or it has exposed that our lives are really not as balanced as we probably delude ourselves to believe? From every income demographic, I think it. Wouldn't you say?
I will say this. I think it, and this is the only way to say it. It exposed the shit shows we all are.
I was trying to be tactful.
I mean, but it's there's no other way to really explain it, because you could be the most productive or focused person in the world. You get hit with something like this, your life gets turned upside down. I do motivational speaking. I own businesses. I'm a big personal development guy. This time totally threw me for a loop. I didn't know how to handle it. So yeah, I think this exposed a lot of things in the world. The imbalance people have, the lack of common sense, the lack of logic, the mentality of some people. It's just exposed. I mean, I could sit here for hours and talk and get into all kinds of rabbit holes with you, but I think as a whole, it's exposed a lot of things in people. I think this was something the world needed to go through to really get people to take that step back and say, what is actually important to me? And I think I know a lot of people, and I've done that myself, where you have to take that step back and say, what is actually important for me for the next 5, 10, 20 years from now? We don't always do that as human beings. We get very focused in the now and in the immediate, from here to here. This pandemic, I believe, one, caused all this stuff to bubble up in individuals, which exposed those imbalances. But it also helped, if you took advantage of it, not everybody did, if you took advantage of it, it helped you look at how to get back some semblance of balance in what is actually important to you moving forward. That's how I look at it.
It's a very good point. After about the first 2 weeks, I just said to myself, I don't know if I'm going to be out, because real estate, we couldn't work.
Yeah, right.
You're entrenched in our industry. So being that was a big uncertain to me, what can I do to make an impact in my own life? It sounds like a crazy loaded question, but that's what I actually asked myself. I wasn't happy with my weight. I wasn't happy with what I was eating. I slacked off on my reading. I had a CE. In my industry, I had CE training I had to complete. I was just behind on so many things. And being that I couldn't work, I figured, why would I not take the time to clean up these other messes? So when we do come back, I feel that's coming. I think I can a little time here. I can hit the ground running again. So I'm personally pleased with progress and things that I wanted to do, but I just could have easily stayed in and just kept clicking the Netflix button, because that's in me too.
Yeah, no, I mean,
and I'm aware of that.
I did it a few times. Trust me. I
Early
watched The Tiger King.
Early on, I think we all did, my friend. Why? And it's funny. Under normal circumstances, would that series even been popular?
No. I remember watching it and thinking to myself,
only in the pandemic.
I'm never going to get this time back.
Exactly.
But I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
I had to see it through.
Like
I had to see it through. It really was. But it was, it's one of those things where it's, and you're a high performing person, right? So you took that time.
I tried to be.
You looked at that moment in time and said, okay, what can I do to use this time wisely? Because you could work. I was fortunate enough where I could work.
Yeah.
And so I did the opposite. I got too focused in work and took that, because before the pandemic, I tend to think I was somewhat balanced. I made sure I did my motivational reading every day.
Right.
I was doing the things I was normally, trying to stay fit. When I got through the pandemic and I just started working, like everything else was kind of falling by the wayside. And I had to take that moment and say, what the hell am I doing? And pull back and say, okay, let's refocus. Let's look at what I need to be doing. And that took probably about a month to get there.
Does this also expose how powerful, even for strong individuals, and I certainly one of the people in my sphere, one of the strongest people I know, you're in there.
Thank you.
But fear is something, huh? I mean, fear can really take over anyone, given the right circumstances and the right kind of fear and the right surroundings.
Yeah, fear in my mind is one of the most powerful emotions an individual can feel, and it's damaging. But it can also be motivating. You can it depends on how you use it, right? Some people let fear take over and let it control their actions, their thought processes, and the way they operate. Other people use fear as something to motivate them to say, I know what's out there, I got to do things differently. And this whole thing, I've watched people that I'm friends with that have let fear take over. And these are rational, logical people that when this whole thing started, and even now, they're just feeding constant fear and this data, and no one knows what to think. And I've just seen logic leave the building.
I know.
And that's what's frustrating, because that's what happens when you let fear control you. It takes away common sense. It takes away the ability to take information. If I have 10 pieces of information in front of me, I can logically deduce what that information means. Fear has caused people to take that information and listen to what someone says it's supposed to say and believe that.
Yes.
Without deducing their own opinion. And that's a scary thing, because that's how a big part of our country is operating right now, which is scary, because I've got kids. I got a son going into the world now. I got kids coming up in the world. And if we're living in a world driven by fear, we've got a lot bigger problems coming our way than this pandemic.
Understood. And that does shift nicely, I might add. It's a nice segue to, again, leadership. We kind of touch on it all the time too, but we have leaders that have been exposed right now. 100%. And I can't even call them leaders, but the offices they hold are typically referred to as leadership, and we hope there's leadership coming from those offices. But a couple of notes I jotted down for you here: that leading by ego, arrogance, and from your book, ego, arrogance, and domination. Yeah, and carved up, maybe not uniformly, but there's elements of so much that's going on all levels of government.
Absolutely,
from the president on all the way down to local mayor.
I mean, absolutely, and there's so many examples of that, and that's what's so frustrating, because we're not. Everybody says the data is driving the decisions, the science is driving the decisions, but they're really not when you look at it. And I'll give you a prime example from our state, and this is my own opinion, and people may have differing opinions. A couple weeks ago, on that Tuesday, our governor went on the radio and applauded Rich Fitzgerald for doing the, shutting down the bars and doing those things. He saw numbers spike. That was his choice to do. He applauded them. And what he said was, we don't have to take a statewide action anymore. We have enough data, and we know enough where we can be very surgical in our approach to the right. Like it's
a novel idea,
right? So
where's that been?
and I listened to that, and I'm like, okay, like that's an intelligent thing. Like maybe he shifted his approach.
Right.
That same day, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania came out and sided with his decision,
right.
And then the next day, statewide mask mandate. So that doesn't add up to me. The day before, you stated we don't need to take statewide action. We can focus where things are happening and be surgical in our approach. Right? Middle of the state, there's hardly any cases.
Right.
Supreme Court says, nope, your disaster order is still in effect. The next day, masks everywhere. The moment you walk outside in Pennsylvania, you have to wear a mask no matter where you are. Not county by county, entire state. That's politics to me. Mm-hmm. Like that's not letting data and science drive the decision.
No, the Supreme Court
and power.
The Supreme Court validated his power.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And he may have good intentions. Don't get me wrong. I think, look, I believe all politicians, for the most part, have good intentions. Sure. They're just in a situation they've probably never faced before, from the president down to the local mayors.
That's part of their job.
Correct. That's exactly right. That's the problem. Like that's what you sign up for when you go into politics. In my mind, we don't have a king or a dictator in this state. We have a legislature that the people elected,
right.
And that's where I get frustrated. I'm a middle of the road guy. Mm-hmm. Talk to the legislature. If more than half of the people in your state are against something, I think you should think that through if you're going to go the opposite way. And that's what's happening. Leadership's driven by ego now, and
They want to win.
It's exactly.
They
It's
want to
a
be
power
right.
grab.
They want to win.
I would respect leaders more if they went back and said, I screwed up. I was wrong. And I'll even, look, whether you love Trump or hate Trump, I'll give him credit this past week where he's went on his press briefings and said you should wear a mask, even though he was so against it. He's said it's going to get worse before it gets better. Like he's not backtracked, but he's went back on things he said, and his tone has changed.
Someone's got to him with some data that made sense to him finally.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Sounds like it.
And to me, that's, again, I'm not saying he's a perfect person and he's a great leader, but that's part of leadership where you can say, you know what, I may have said something before, I'm saying something different now. And that's okay. Like, I respect politicians more if they did that. If they said, I was wrong, and here's why we're doing it. Now, all I say is, give me the data and the science that supports the decisions. And that's what I feel is lacking, because we don't even know if the data adds up anymore. If you look at things that are happening, like, we don't even know what's actually the real data. And that's a scary thing, because we're making big decisions that impact the populace based upon data that we can't verify as accurate.
I've always been a states' rights type of thinker.
Sure.
This pandemic has actually turned, on this particular issue, has actually flipped me over.
Okay.
And the reason is, I want to get your thoughts on this, is that our implementation has been so screwed up here. I don't even want to use the word implementation, because that's almost too much of a compliment to what we've seen. But if the miscommunication and the struggle between power of the state and the federal were ever shown in any instance, it's been during this.
Oh, absolutely.
And to put a cohesive plan in, wouldn't you agree, for going forward with similar circumstances, there's got to be somebody in control. One body has to be controlled. I understand the fear of giving that to the federal government and all the implications there, and I get that. But it seems like putting it all in the states is going to be a mass of 50 sets of confusion, trying to work cohesively with an umbrella government that is already pissed off at them.
Yeah, I mean, I echo your sentiment about being a states' right person. Like, I get the Constitution; that's how we were founded as a country. Yep. But you're right in this situation. Look, I live 15 minutes from West Virginia. I can drive over there and walk into a restaurant not wearing a mask, and does the virus stop at the state lines?
Right.
That's the thing. Like, there's inconsistencies in the way states have approached it, and I do believe there should have been some level of federal, I mean, they did put federal guidance out, but the problem we have is, and you're seeing it from all parts of the political spectrum, is states want the federal government's help when they can blame the federal government for something.
Of course.
They don't want the federal government's help when it makes the states look bad.
1,000,000%. Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Exactly correct.
When you're looking
exactly
at all these, defund movements and these military things, it's just they say it's the federal government's problem when it looks bad for the federal government. Let the states deal with it when it would look bad for the states if the federal government dealt with it. And that's happening with the pandemic, with all the things that are happening in the world right now. And that's a problem. And that's why we're in the situation we're in. There's no one's really running the show. There's a bunch of quarterbacks, and they all have different playbooks. That's the problem.
Yeah, and again, I refer back to your book, The Alpha Way, by the way. Yeah, I've read this multiple times. You talk about the phrase actually talks about a business card, but leadership and management is not fully on display in every level of government during the pandemic. Would you not agree? We've talked about that. You said because somebody has the title.
Yeah.
Whether they say it, whether it's on a name tag, whether it's on a door or on a business card, management does not equate leadership. And we've made that, we've confused that for decades.
Absolutely.
Primarily in business, but obviously in government. They don't have that problem in the military.
No, you're right, and that's what's so interesting. Like the military gets it, and why we can't get that in government, in business, because leadership comes from within. A title doesn't make you a leader. A leader can have a title, but having the title doesn't make you a leader. What's inside makes you a leader. The way you handle problems, the way you handle people,
right.
The way, being empathetic, being authentic, being able to admit mistakes and adjust course without taking the criticism to heart. That's where I think we are in this situation right now, where even if a politician realizes they're wrong, they will double down on what they're doing because they don't want to admit they're wrong. And that's what I'm seeing. Like there are certain situations where, okay, we did this, we don't need to do it anymore because we're learning other things, but they don't want to admit they were wrong, so they're going to double down on what they were doing just to make people even more mad.
I think that's just society in general.
Well, yeah.
No one. You're absolutely right. No one can admit when they're wrong.
No.
And it's so funny. We use so many words acrobatically, I might say, and I'd even be okay for someone fudging the truth because they don't actually want to admit they're wrong, but in the essence, at least change the direction. Don't stay in the same direction out of spite.
Right.
When you know you're flipping wrong.
Well, and that's the thing.
That's crazy to me.
And that's what a leader does. Look, I'm not saying I'm this great leader, but I'm the first to admit when I'm wrong. Like, I've made a shit ton of my mistakes in my life. I still make mistakes to this day. I don't know everything. If I say something today and I find out it's wrong tomorrow, I'll admit that, because I can only make decisions based upon the information I have at the time. If that information changes, my decisions may change, my actions may change, but I'm also comfortable enough in myself to admit that I may have been wrong. And that's what happens. People, I feel like a lot of people that get into positions of leadership, they do it because they have this, I don't want to say inadequacy or this lack of self-esteem or something, that when they get into this position of power, they're validated by the position, not by their ability to lead. So they have this validation because now I'm the leader, I'm in the position of power, what I say goes. But they're not willing to admit when they're wrong, because it's a shot, they take it personal, it's a shot at their ego. When if you look at a leader, a true leader, they understand that, okay, the information I had at the time led me to that decision, that information has changed, I've changed course. It's just a matter of principle. Right. But too many people are afraid to do that because they think it makes them look weak.
Absolutely. Because they don't understand what leadership means.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's 100% right. And that's the unfortunate part. And that's what scares me for the generation coming up. And I'm trying to, to teach my kids leadership principles, and hoping that they, 1, follow my lead, 2, listen to what I say, and 3, go out in the world and actually lead, whatever they become, whether it's, the president of the United States, or, my daughter wants to be a ballet teacher, but whatever you do it as a leader. And that's what we need more of in this world. And too many people are too quick to judge, too quick to argue, too quick to dig their heels in on their position, even though the data or the information may completely contradict it.
They want to admit that they're wrong.
That's exactly right.
I would hope we learn this in the 2nd grade.
Yeah. The problem we have in this country right now is we can't even have discussions. That's what I realized, that, the way to solve the problems in this country, all the problems we're talking about in the media right now when it comes to, police brutality, race relations, the pandemic, these are problems we have to solve or figure out ways to change course. To do that, we have to have rational discussions between rational minds. The problem we have right now is people have picked a team, they've dug their heels in and said, that's my team. And no one wants to really come to the middle of the field on the 50-yard line, shake hands and say, let's walk and solve this together. And that's what leadership is.
Okay. I'm there 100%. Okay. Devil's advocate for you.
Yeah.
The reason I think that, just an example with 2 people of power.
Sure.
Trump will not meet with Pelosi, which that meeting could do so much good having it come from a position of authenticity.
Yeah.
They won't, because the system in place that we, the people, have let it evolve where we let our politicians stay in power for long periods of time. We don't have any checks in there that them holding on to their job or being right doesn't have any implications. It has election implications. And the power from staying in power or no turnover, with the lack of turnover, doesn't give any kind of, I don't know, like mental certainty that I'm going to do 4-6 years of good work and then I'm going to walk away from this. I cannot continue on. It's the way the system is set up.
Correct.
I just think that one little change, because you look at a process, right? And the process isn't working for the benefit of the people. So in the process, what 1 or 2 things can you do to throw like a dagger into that moving process, stop it, and make an alteration that would then give logical reason to what often is irrational people or money or power hungry people to act the right way. If there wasn't so much on the line for their team or their circumstance, they might act more altruistically. Would you not agree?
100%. And I believe we should have term limits. Like
that one thing we could do would really be a game changer.
I mean, if you look at the Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, the 2 leaders of the Senate and the House from 2 different parties, they've both been in politics almost as long as I've been alive, right? I'm going to be 43 next month. They've been in politics almost 40 years. Whether you agree with their policies or not, when I hear both of them speak, I don't have I'm not competent or confident, in their mental fortitude. Like when I listen to Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell speak about the other side, I listen and I'm like, okay, well, what? How are these people still, when there's a lot of smart people
Get ready
out
for
there?
the presidential debate with Biden and Trump.
Oh my God! I mean, if it even happens,
that's a clown show.
I mean,
that's a clown show.
Well, and it's interesting because one, is it going to happen? And and Trump right now, whether you like him or hate him, he's a political chess player. And he's doing some interesting things, I think, to goad Biden into debating. Like he'll take these press conferences and basically tout his record and kind of debate with Biden without Biden being there to answer. So a debate was going to be interesting, but you're right. We need to work together. Like we have the 2-party system is a broken system in my opinion, because I believe the majority of people sit in the middle. I sit in the middle.
No doubt about it.
I used to be a lot more Republican than I am. I'm fiscally conservative, socially.
We mirror exactly the philosophy.
And there's nowhere for us to belong. I mean, the Libertarian Party is kind of where I feel like I sit.
Why do we have parties?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, that's
is the argument that if we just run at large, you'll have like 1 million people running. If you don't make the entrance point stronger in support, everyone will run.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to there's got to be a policy platform. Like if you had no parties, you have all these just rogue politicians setting policies that don't necessarily make sense. I think they built.
But there's more than 2.
No, I agree, and that's
crazy
the problem. I'm not going to pretend I know the history of the creation of the political system,
right?
But I look at it now. To your point, like we have people term limits. I'm a proponent of, because I think people become career politicians, and these career politicians have done nothing but be a politician, are making decisions that impact small businesses. Like I have a majority of my clients are small businesses.
Right.
I've seen what has happened to them throughout this pandemic, and these politicians that are making decisions that impact small businesses, they may have never owned a business or worked in a business, so they don't understand what actually happens, but they're making decisions like they do, and that's a problem. Because they've been there Joe Biden's been in politics since the 70s. I was born in 1977. He was in politics before I was born.
Right. Both parties have it.
Right. And he hasn't. What has he done outside of that? And I mean, both sides of the aisle have these career politicians that, they make their money in politics, and that's a scary thing too. There's people out there that question, Trump's integrity and the things he's doing. It's like he was a billionaire before he went into politics. people come out of politics and become billionaires.
Yeah, it's funny how that if they're on your side, whatever side you choose, that's okay. It's okay that your guy went in 1982, never had a real job before that,
right,
and has somehow managed to get reelected for decades,
right,
and is going to leave office worth $25 million,
right. How
Don't
does that
tell
happen?
me you got that out of a book or two. No.
Right, exactly. and you don't make, I mean, you make decent money in Congress, maybe $200,000 a year, but you're not going to build a $25 million net worth making $200,000 a year.
Never look into that. The system does take care of its own.
That's exactly right.
It does.
You're 100% right. And that's the problem. It's people like us that are actually the ones out there trying to make things happen, trying to help people, trying to build businesses, trying to help all of my clients. We're the ones that get screwed by the system. And even, I have aspirations to run for politics, to get into politics at some point.
You're going to find a party you like.
Well, that's the problem. Like, one, you're 100% right. Like, what platform do you run on? Like, how do you even get into that process? Two, until there's a fundamental shift in the actual system, one guy can't make a difference. And that's the scary part.
It's true, though. That's exactly right. And I try not to let that deflate me on a daily basis, but I'm at that point where I believe that.
Yeah.
I don't want to believe that, but I believe it.
And you're right, and I hate that even came out of my mouth, but because I'm an optimist by nature, and I want to believe that I can go in and be the person that makes the difference, but I'm also a realist. And I watch what has happened throughout my lifetime, throughout the political sphere, both sides of the aisle, and it's hard until the system itself is changed. Now, maybe the point of having a president like Donald Trump, even if he's a one-term president, he's exposed a lot of the inadequacies in Washington. Both sides of the aisle, both parties, not just the Democrats, all sides of that. Maybe that's what had to happen, and maybe now it'll encourage people like us to get involved, to put our hat in the ring, to try and make change, because we realize how broken the system is. I mean, the system is completely broken, in my opinion. I mean, the fact that this whole pandemic has just exposed it. We go back to your question about exposing the imbalances in our lives. This has exposed the imbalances in our country, in our political system, in the way government operates. And we have to fix it, or our kids are fucked.
There's no question.
I mean, there's no other way to say it. And I want to be a part of that. I just don't know how to do it yet.
I listened to Peter Schiff. You familiar with Peter?
Yeah.
Money Man. He's never shy for an opinion, right? But I listened to him for 3 hours with Joe Rogan and them talking over each other on Skype. It was marvelous. But you take that aside. I got through to 3 hours because he's so damn good.
Yeah.
Pure capitalist.
Yeah.
100% in regards to just logic. And he said a lot of really what it can come off in today's uber-sensitive society as being harsh.
Yeah.
But real rational things about the minimum wage and how logical that is. And he would buck all the feel-good trends that we want to do for people, because I think we are giving as a people.
Sure.
But his delineation was, look, you can be a giving person, but do it the charitable route.
Yes.
Don't do it through government. Don't do it by taxing businesses or capitalism. Don't hurt the golden goose, which goes back to Jim Roh saying that 50 years ago. Capitalism is the golden goose. It's everything you see around you, everything you enjoy in your life, everything from your iPhone to television to the jeans you wear to the car you drive to the airplane you fly. It all comes from capitalism. To kill the golden goose, or to suggest now that you're going to make an abrupt change because you got all the stuff that are so cool, let's try this new thing. That new thing has failed every time it's been tried across the world. And if you can't see that, if you're not sophisticated enough as a person, you got to get out of second grade, friends. That's why the desks are so small there. I keep saying it. You're not supposed to stay there.
Yes.
If you can't think at least that critically, that you have a system that's been in here for so long that's not perfect, but it's the most perfect thing we've ever come up with that the world's ever seen.
Yes.
Yet we continually try to take from it, and in the essence of helping people, ends up burying people, burying cities, burying demographics. And man, 3 hours of my life that was so well well spent listening to this man. But if he was to say this in any audience, if he was to go to the Democratic convention and stand up and say that, they would boo him out. If he would go to the Republican convention, he probably would get booed out. 'Cause both parties are pretty much synonymous anymore. But there's few people out there that will tell you the harsh truth. And what I got from that 3 hours, and the point of all this was that we know inside that we're fucking up. We know we all know. No one's when I listen to I guess her acronym is AOC. I think she's an okay woman. I'm sure I could probably have a cocktail with her and have dinner and talk to her. But inside, she has to know. She has to believe that socialism and the slide into communism can no way, shape, or form be put up in a rational discussion with capitalism.
Right.
She has to know that. She can say she doesn't believe it. She can politic against it. But inside, she has to know. And his whole thing was, if we would really govern and we listen to what we actually know to be true, if we really would listen and use the logic that we all have, none of these problems would be big problems. None of them. He was so spot on.
No, I 100% agree.
We're pushing false narratives. All the fucking time. We're pushing false narratives for whatever reason we're doing it. Make us feel good because we're an exceptional thinker. We're outside the box thinker. It's all bullshit.
Well, right. I mean, you see people talking about socialism and communism while they're having a speech on their iPhone that was created by capitalism.
It goes even deeper. It's like John Kerry. I think he's a very polished speaker. But John Kerry cannot talk to me about a green policy and then go get in these limousines, these private planes, and fly off. There's too much hypocrisy.
That's exactly right.
And there's plenty of hypocrisy on the right.
Absolutely.
Equally to the left. I mean, pick a side. Take a side, right?
Absolutely.
I just, the hypocrisy is that these people know they're spewing bullshit, but it's for a certain purpose that does not serve often the people.
That's exactly right. People, and we live in this society, and look, I'm just going to say it. We are lacking strong people. People have become weak.
Why? Why can't we find them? Why don't they rise? Why doesn't the cream rise to the top?
Because here's why. I like to think I'm a strong-willed person. I have some strong viewpoints. If I start saying those, I'm going to get beat down by the mob. We've created this mob mentality. People are afraid. I just saw something this morning. 62%, I think it was 62% of people are afraid to talk about their political opinion for fear of backlash. That's a fucking problem in this country. We were founded as a democracy. The ideas. We built this country on ideas. We have to understand that we have to be able to, if you and I were polar opposites politically, we could still have a rational discussion because we're rational people. I will listen to the other side. If you have a great argument, if you could convince me about socialism or government-run healthcare or communism, and there was a legitimate, and I said, okay, makes sense. No one's been able to do it yet because it doesn't make sense to me. Right. Even the whole minimum wage debate, like that. Right. I have clients that are small businesses. I've owned small businesses. Minimum wage was instituted to be the minimum wage you have to pay a person. That's legal, not to support a family of 4. Like you said, get out of the second grade. Like this world, we're meant to excel as people, but we have to put in the effort. The problem we have, and this comes back to the lack of strength in this world, people don't want to put in the effort. We've made life easy. We made life convenient.
Schiff said as well, too, in that conversation.
I mean, it's the truth. We've made it convenient. We have a phone. I can go on my phone, and by the time I'm home, I can have groceries at my door. I don't have to do anything. We've made life too easy. So people take that ease of life into the world and into government, into business. Well, I should just get paid more because...
But we become lazy in thought.
100%.
I mean, you and I will get bashed for saying that, but we are lazy.
I don't care.
We are lazy in thought, and we've taken the ease of our life, and we've not realized that the one thing that we this amazing tool up here is that critical thinking is amazing. It's created some of the greatest things in the world, but the masses use those things for their own benefit. but they don't carry on the critical thinking
No.
to make society move forward.
And the media uses that to their,
crazy.
but it's the truth.
No
The media uses it to
question.
their advantage because they put out
question.
narratives or headlines. They know
They lap it up.
90% of the people
Lap
aren't
it
going to
up.
use critical thinking or even read the article.
Right.
So they're going to just put it out there, and then that becomes a discussion point.
Right.
And I look at this, and I'm like, are we even having this fucking discussion right
Right.
now? Like, how is this even the whole Trump saying inject Lysol? Like, I watched that entire briefing. I'm like, this is the fact that this is even a discussion just shows how people do not use critical thinking, like you said.
Well, and I told my daughter in conversation because she was 16 times 17. She says she's 17 now, but it was right around her birthday. We were out driving one night during the beginning of when that came out.
Yeah.
And I said, Gwen, remember that game you had as a kid
Yeah.
where you'd start, and see in a semicircle, and the teacher would whisper something to the first kid, and then by the time it got all the way around,
Yep.
the sentence was. That's how, not just this issue, but you have to understand when you get this stuff over the air.
Yeah.
It's been massaged and edited, and it's fitting a narrative. Sometimes it's not even a station; it could be one producer, one
Yes.
person
Yes.
could upset a whole apple cart.
Yep.
And could so you have to do more research. And I think we've taught our kids well. I think that kids do understand they need to put the effort in. The question is, will they do it?
Yeah.
Because life's pretty easy.
That's exactly that's
Critical
the
thought
problem.
needs to start there.
Absolutely. And that I try and teach my kids that. I haven't figured out the right way to do it yet because I've been a critical thinker my whole life. I questioned everything. It drives my wife crazy, ad nauseum because she takes my questioning as criticism, but it's really just my nature. I'm a lawyer by trade.
Right.
So my nature is to question everything. Doesn't mean I disagree with you. Doesn't mean I'm criticizing you. I just want to make sure I have all the information to formulate my opinion. People, majority of people, just listen to something, say, that makes sense, and just agree with it. But does it make sense? Because they didn't really do the data. And then I'll use the Lysol example again because it's so easy. I was watching that briefing. I said to my wife, I will bet you $1,000 tomorrow morning the headline is, Trump touts injecting Lysol. What he really said was, are there things like disinfectants that we can inject in the body that can kill a virus? Is there something like this? Since we can use something on a surface, is there something like that we can do? Ask the legitimate question. I would ask the same question. There actually are. They do peroxide injections for, I think, cancer treatments. So it wasn't a far off question. The media took it, and they still to this day.
Well, sure.
They use that. Well, when President Trump said it, people should inject Lysol. It's like that's not what he said. But because they know people aren't going to verify the information or use critical thought, that's become their talking point. And that's the problem in this country. We've become weak as a society, and we've lost the ability to critically think, and we've lost logic and common sense. Not everybody, but a large portion of people have.
Well, most in politics have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the critical thinking that's being done here is, again, when I say critical thinking, it's a blanket statement because there are think tanks and some very liberal universities that are their starting point is already illogical to me.
Yeah, right.
So their extrapolation from the starting point, I have no interest in because how they got to the starting point doesn't make any sense.
Right. But that might have been their critical thinking process. So at least they went through a process.
And I'm sure they're brilliant. And it's just, I just don't understand on the business front why. And we talked last time where I thought the divide with the people was not Republican, Democrat in the beginning. It was those who were entrepreneurs and those that were employees.
Yes.
And there was jealousy. Not really jealousy, but there was not jealousy. There was fear on one side of safety more than survivalship with money. They could not understand each other.
Right.
And a lot of small businesses got crippled by it. And again, but then Schiff had a great point, and I wanted this is the crux of what I want to get to. He mentioned that this exposed a shit ton of people that don't have any savings and a shit ton of businesses that if they lose 1 month or 2 months of revenue are out of business. And I will tell you, as a small business owner, I don't want to lose a couple months of business.
Right.
I won't be out of business, but I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
But it boggles my mind that we are so tight in the big corporations. Like when you
Yeah.
show me American Airlines can't lose 1 month of revenue, and they go into, it isn't even panic mode. It's like they're laying people off after 1 month of lost revenue.
Yeah.
And I realize it's a big corporation, but whatever happened to the philosophy of, having 4 months of savings, having 5 months of savings? Why corporately don't we do that anymore? Why do we run corporations almost hand to mouth when it comes to being solvent?
Shareholders.
What happened there?
It's shareholders, in my opinion. I mean, so we have these bloated expenses, right? You take on all these large costs, and they want to provide shareholder value, dividends. There's a lot of the overly compensated corporate executives, and the whole, large corporations, small corporations, I believe, are really two different animals,
Okay.
right? The large corporations, they could take an airline, right? Like, they have just high expenses. I mean, that's just that.
So their
is what it
margins
is.
are small.
Their margins are super small. Same thing
Okay.
with restaurants, right? That's why restaurants, even though they're small businesses, they're getting crushed by this, because you can't. In PA here, we have to operate on 25% capacity. How do you expect a restaurant? If
you
a
can't.
restaurant has
Can't.
a good restaurant, we'll say, like a nice higher end restaurant, maybe they have 20 tables, right? 20 tables, and they maybe turn them 3 times a night.
Now they have 5.
Now they have 5 they can turn 3 times a night. That's ridiculous. But they still have to have a cook. They still have to have a dishwasher. They still have to have a hostess. Maybe they have less servers, but their expenses don't
Utilities?
decrease to 25%.
Right.
Their expenses may decrease by 30%, but you can't get a 25% cook. So people aren't thinking through the entire picture. It's like, 25% capacity, that worked. No, it doesn't, because it's not a 1-to-1. It's not like that.
It's hard for a person working for XYZ company at a as a financial analyst position in middle management, and continue to receive their paycheck,
Yep.
and they're staying home, and they're fearful. It's hard for them to grasp, though, what an entrepreneur goes through. They just can't get there. And look, I'm not saying entrepreneurship is for everybody. It is
No, it's
not.
not.
It's not, and that's okay. That's the beauty of life, the differences.
Yeah.
But you can't get an employee, your FedEx driver, or an employee for the airlines, getting that regular salary and taking care of their family, loving life. You can't get them to understand the trials and tribulations. And when government put us in this position,
right,
to pick a side,
that's the
that
problem.
was really difficult.
Yeah.
As a society, we had a hard time with that.
Yeah.
Really hard time with that.
And I think people are still having a hard time with it, because it's still the debate out there. Not as big as it was 3 months ago, but the debate is still out there. And the problem becomes, coming back to you, you're a states' rights person. I'm an individual rights person. Give me the information, give me the data, and let me make my choice. If I'm afraid or vulnerable, I'll stay home. If I can work from home, I'll work from home. But if I need to feed my family, I should be allowed to do that. And that's where I get frustrated with government, because they act like, and I feel for these restaurants. When things opened up, I went out to a few restaurants. There was no one there.
I know.
There weren't crowds. There weren't people there. And these poor servers were, getting crushed. And everywhere I go, I try and leave as big a tip as possible.
Absolutely.
Because I feel for them. And the government acts like these restaurants want to put people at risk. They don't. There's so many. I worked in a restaurant as in college. Like, there was so much shit you had to do, cleaning and sanitizing, that restaurants are, I'd probably feel the safest in a restaurant because of the precautions they take. But yet that is the issue that our government has. That's what caused the spike in cases. And to me, that's bullshit. But targeting an industry like the restaurant industry that was already battered and beaten down, to me, is complete and utter bullshit.
Yeah.
And I feel for these people, because some of them won't survive. They won't come back from this. These servers, like, think about that. They don't make much from an hourly standpoint. They make their money in tips.
Right.
And if you can only serve 25% of the people you normally do, that's 75% less income you're making that night. It's bullshit.
Yeah. The tough thing, too, is, Florida and some of the southern states,
Yeah.
they saw the summer coming, and, of course, they opened the beaches.
Yeah.
And I'm not a scientist. There had to be a better way to open those beaches, though, more precautions, because who didn't know that spring break was going to happen, or some
Sure.
delayed spring break was going to happen. I
Sure.
mean, and if that is an issue as well, we didn't manage that well.
No, but here's the thing. So I just spoke to a client yesterday, and she had mentioned that she was at a beach over 4th of July weekend.
Okay.
And she's like, what's frustrating is I saw photos that people put out, like the media scaring everybody.
But everybody was dissing.
She's like, they were taking the angle. Of course it looks packed. She's like, there was no one within 25 feet of me
That
anywhere
makes
on the
sense.
beach.
Everybody's scared.
Yeah.
I mean, like everybody's fearful, right?
That's exactly right.
I mean, come on.
And you're going to have those small clusters of people that just don't give a shit and do it. But
Right.
90% of the people out there, look, I believe we all want to do the right thing for the greater good. I think that's inherent as a human being. We want to be kind to others. We want to do what's right. I do believe there's a debate right now as to the mask thing and these closures, and that's okay. Like, we can have that debate. I don't think people are blatantly violating the rules to be an asshole.
Right.
But that's what they're making people feel like. So people are getting shamed for doing certain things because they have a position. And we've gotten to this point in society right now where we're just looking to pick on people that don't agree with us.
There's no question.
And that's a scary,
The mask
scary
is just
position.
an implemented discussion.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I hate to say that,
No.
but that's what they are. You could pick anything.
Yes, right, exactly.
We're looking to fight for our side or fight for our position, even if we're not even sure of our own position.
Well, that's it. It's you're Trump or not Trump. You're mask or no mask. You're open, you don't open. You're more unemployment.
Yankees, Red Sox.
Red Sox. Okay. Thank God baseball did start, even though there's no fans. I mean,
man, well, I want to go in that a little bit with you. Just your thoughts on the baseball starting up again, of course, and what are we looking at this fall in regards to sports? What do you think is going to happen? Because the big question right now is football.
Yeah.
As we broadcast this, I think division. There's been some smaller divisions in Division I football. Some smaller conferences have basically bagged it for the season.
Yeah.
Now, nothing of any big consequence for television revenue, but where do you think we are here at the end of July?
You know, that's the frustrating part because it's all, in my opinion, it's all over the board. There's no consistency. You know, I truly believe that sports should play. And if you choose to go, you understand the risk. If I choose to go to a baseball,
called freedom.
Right. It's I understand the risk. If I was living with, you know, my mother or my father who are older and maybe they're vulnerable, I wouldn't go.
Right.
But I live with my wife and 2 kids. We're not a vulnerable population.
Right.
I'm not around those types of people, so I would 100% go. If I could go to a baseball game today, I would go. The problem is we are making decisions for the entire population to protect a very, very small percent, which, okay, I understand why we're protecting them, but we're taking away freedoms from 99% of the population to protect 1%. Mm-hmm. I can't logically make sense of that in my mind. So when it comes to sports, like, I believe they should play. Will they play? I don't think so. I think the NFL will. I think colleges are going to keep following suit. That, okay, now this one's going to close. Now this one say they're not going to play. Now this one says they're not going to play. And it's just because the data coming out is all over the board. Mm-hmm. So I think people are picking the worst case scenario data and making decisions based on that.
Of course.
And that's frustrating to me because I believe that there's been studies about kids in school and you know, not being able to transmit it as much. And yeah, if you live with your they always talk about, well, you know, kids come home, they live with grandparents. Okay, I don't know how many kids live with grandparents, right? Out of my kids' friends, I don't know any of them that have a grandparent that lives with them. Mm-hmm. So we're making these blanket statements that, well, we don't want to send kids back to school and have sports because, yeah, they may not transmit it among themselves, but they may live with a grandparent. Well, how many do we know how many families have a grandparent?
Well,
that
we
lives
don't.
there?
But I think a better indicator is how close proximity people live together in general.
Right.
So
Sure.
bigger cities obviously have a bigger, harder problem than the suburbs,
Of course.
or the rural areas.
Yes.
That's the logic that's just not being followed. We're painting with very broad brushes here. I mean,
exactly right.
And that's where to bring the conversation back to my my about face on crisis management, where I'm a big states' rights believer, Rocco, if we give the federal government the power to make the final decisions, they're going to paint with a broad brush. And Iowa is going to deal with consequences as if they were New York City.
Right.
That's not appropriate.
Right. That's the problem.
That is the problem.
And honestly, there's no good answer to this problem. That's the way I look at it, because we've gone too far down a path that I don't think we can logically recover from and make better choices. I think we're down that path. We're going to see what happens through this election, and then things will change from there. That's what I believe. I don't believe that all of a sudden the federal government's going to wake up and be like, you know what? We need to be more logical and make better decisions. I don't believe the states are going to do that right now. I think they've dug in to the positions they're taking, and this is going to, the next 4 months at least, we're going to ride this out and see what happens. That's truly what I believe. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think this was created for political reasons. I think this is a virus. It's out there. It's something that's new. We don't know about it. Do I think people have used it to their advantage? 100%.
It's been co-opted by both sides.
Well, and that's the thing. And that's why I don't think we're ever going to have that federal government step in and say, you know what, we need to make better decisions. I think everybody's just dug in. They've picked their lane. They're in that lane until we get through this election.
So, but on the professional sports side, these leagues, they can't, states' rights are really going to screw with them.
Yeah.
Because I think there's been talk about, is the Wolf administration going to permit the Steelers and the Eagles to play?
Yeah. Well, they just said that Blue Jays can't play here. You saw that the Pirates were...
They wanted to share the stadium.
Yeah, Toronto couldn't play in Canada, so they were looking for the place to hold their home games. The Pirates were going to let them do it. You know,
there might be some winning baseball in PNC Park.
But Dr. Levine said no.
Okay.
No, we can't have. Now, meanwhile, when you think about that, like the logic, okay, she's saying that we don't want to have all these people traveling in. One, there's no spectators.
Right.
So you're talking about an organization of 50 people. 50 to 75 people coming in to play. And if we can wear masks and social distance, isn't that supposed to prevent things from spreading? And we can test them.
That's a good point.
So to me, that was just complete and utter power grab.
The power trip.
That's all it was, because there was no law. It's one thing if we said there was going to be fans and all these people from Canada were going to come in and watch the Blue Jays. Okay, I get that. This is the team. And the other team, which is going to happen with the Pirates, there's going to be other teams coming to play if they play
from all the so-called hotspots, right?
So how is it all of a sudden Toronto? Nope. All the other teams the Pirates play, that's okay, but having Toronto here to play, 30 of their home games and now doubling the games, it just doesn't make sense. It's a power grab, and that's what people aren't looking at it that way. There are people that are just listening to what the government says and just taking it at face value. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying question. Ask why. Tell me why 70 people from the Blue Jays organization will cause the spread of the coronavirus in this area when 70 people from the Cubs won't. What's the logic? I mean, what is the logic?
It's easy to think through, but they didn't think through it.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's just blanket statements. And we've just gotten to this position where people are just like, fuck it. I don't even care anymore. I'm not even going to argue. That's where I think people have gotten to. We've gotten to this point where people have said, you know what? I believe what I believe. I'm done fighting. I'm done arguing. I'm done trying to figure it out. I'm going to live my life the way I want to live. And I think people just got corona exhaustion. Yeah. That's really what it is.
The thing I don't understand in the end is the thinking where, again, back to that capitalism thing, it drives me nuts that somebody is okay with the philosophy or the idea that it's okay to shut them all down, F these businesses because they're causing the virus or they're spreading the virus, or F this. If you do that, where are you going to get your sources of income? Where is your money coming from? Like, where do you think your money will come from if you put capitalism, our way of life, in jeopardy? Like, where is the money we'll get it from the government. Well, the government can only tax those who earn money.
Right.
I mean, it's a vicious circle, man.
Yeah, it is.
And economics 101, and from there they get really mind screwed in college. But the economics 101 is pretty universal no matter what college you go to.
Yes.
You would think.
Yes.
These are easy philosophies here.
Yeah.
But people don't. I don't know if it's a selfish thing or they just can't get out of their own sphere. It's myopic. They can't look beyond where they are.
Yep.
Maybe it's a human nature thing. I don't know.
I think it's the philosophy that if you ask somebody that believes in socialism, tell me what socialism is, I guarantee they don't know the fundamental nature of socialism and what it actually means and what it actually is. Because, hey, there's plenty of socialist countries out there. Go live there. If you want to be a socialist, go live where it already is. If you're that's my thing. If you're that gung ho,
every 10 years they have a coup,
right? But it's just like if you're that gung ho, there's plenty of countries you can move to that follow a socialist philosophy. Go see what it's like. You're not going to change the United States. It's going to be, I believe, capitalism, like you said,
golden goose, man.
It really is, and that's where I get frustrated because people don't understand what capitalism is. Like they love the luxuries of capitalism
because we see a perverted version of it. We've got a section of the population who don't like it they philosophically believe they don't like it. They probably haven't thought it through. Some probably have.
Yeah.
But they're tugging on it and they're handcuffing it. And that was Schiff's point. They're handcuffing it to the point where pure capitalism and the good that it can do will never happen in this country again because there's just so many chains on it constantly and limitations.
Yeah.
And certainly his argument's a little different. He believes in absolutely no regulations and common human decency will ensure that everyone will be taken care of. I don't know if I get that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that either.
But there needs to be appropriate legislation for regulation. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying unbridled capitalism. I wouldn't put unbridled capitalism out there tomorrow. I want a regulated capitalism.
Yeah,
sensibly. I'm not saying that. We have put so many constraints and to give money or give folks their way because they're afraid. A good portion of society right now, because they're afraid, is not going to serve the country in the long run.
No, not at all.
And I guess that's his overall standpoint: is we're making decisions right now that are feel-good decisions.
Yeah,
because people are afraid, and the way you get the votes is you keep them, you keep them indebted to you.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can just follow the path.
And why are people afraid? Because they were told to be afraid.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. It's this big cycle that I feel like everybody's just so in the middle of it. There's not many people that are taking that step back and zooming out and saying, why are we here? Well, we're afraid because if we didn't have social media, do you think this fear of the coronavirus would be around?
No. If this happened like in 2002, we
wouldn't be shut down.
Right.
Because no one would even care about it. No one would even know about it.
I'm just glad 9/11 didn't happen in the era of social media.
Oh,
could you imagine that?
I don't even want to think about it. Like, that's the scary part. Like, where a lot of this has happened because of social media. And you're seeing people share articles like they're newsworthy today that are from 4 months ago or 3 years ago.
Or from sites that pretend to look like news, and they're not, because they're not reading past the headline.
That's exactly right. And then
there's no critical thinking. That's not even classified critical. That's just thinking. There's no regular thinking.
Right. There's no
on.
reading. It's just it's basic reading. Like, read the article.
Again, second grade.
Yeah, and it's and to the capitalism point. Like, look, I mean, I'm a capitalist. I worked my ass off to get where I am. Yeah, I've had help along the way. Like, I had amazing parents and an amazing family to help me get to where I am. But I've worked for everything. I chose to leave corporate America to build a firm myself and do it. And that's the American dream. I'm not this super intelligent dude that has all this talent. I just worked my ass off. And this comes back to my point of we've become weak as a society. People don't, I believe there's opportunity for everybody. We don't have to be afraid. We can go out and do whatever we want to be in life.
No question.
Put the fucking work in. People don't want to do it. Oh, I only worked for 8 hours. Say I didn't make that much money. Well, yeah, work 18 hours. There are many days or many weeks when I'm working 7 days a week, 12, 16 hours a day to build something. That's the sacrifice I've chosen to make. I don't complain about it because it's the path I picked.
Right.
I don't want someone to hand it to me. I don't want someone to, give me these handouts to make my life easier. If I want an easy life, I'm going to build it. And I feel like if we thought that way as a society, that we know that we can have whatever we want if we work hard enough to do it, I think we'd fundamentally shift this country in the right direction.
I would totally agree. And there's nothing wrong with working 8 hours a day.
No, not at all.
But be content with your life because that's what you've chosen to do.
That's
and
exactly
don't
right.
spew envy and hate toward those who want something different for their lives.
You put it more eloquently than I did, but that's the point I was getting at.
I mean, it's just pretty simple to me.
But that's the problem. Like people spew hate at other people for having stuff they don't have, but they don't
so
give.
Silly to me.
I
don't get it. I've never understood that.
And they don't give them the credit for getting it.
Well, of course not.
And that's the thing, because it's almost like a mirror of their inadequacies.
Because they're right, and they are right. See, they're right. They're right in their thought. Well, someone gave that to them, or they got a certain break, or they got breaks that I couldn't get. It's just a really flawed mentality.
It is.
It's out there. It's just big picture question.
Yeah.
Right there. I think I might have asked this in the first show, but I want to restate it again. What's worse? What's a worse? Well, worse is a tough word with you because you'll come back at me and try to analyze it. Worse is probably not the right word. What is a more manipulated trait to the detriment of society?
Okay.
Ego or envy?
Ooh.
I stumped Rocco.
Well,
I could have called you on the way here and given you
giving you
a heads up on that one. Huh?
Here's what I mean, you could have, but I think I got your answer. I look at ego causes envy. When you think about it. So think about it. If I have an ego, right, and someone has something I don't have, that creates the envy because I believe that I should have it. Why does that guy have it, or why does that girl have it? Like they're interrelated in my opinion, because I think human nature. We all have ego, right? We all have this image of ourselves that we try to become or strive to be. And part of that, I believe, to be successful, you have to have somewhat of an ego. You have to believe in yourself and be that confidence or ego. But I think when ego goes past the line is when envy comes.
Okay.
Because I look at, I'm a confident person. I believe in my ability.
That's the word.
I bet on myself. I'm not envious of anybody else. I look at someone that has more than I do, and to me that means that's possible.
Right there with you. So I've been saying this for decades. So why is it that those two words are so closely misunderstood? Confidence, and ego. Because people will call people of success egotistical because their name's on the building or the name of the project is. It's not ego. If they have the confidence to go about creating something, and executing, and making their livelihood from it, I would say to that person who's criticizing it, try it.
Well, that's exactly
try
right.
it. Yes. It's a great way to live. Don't knock it. Don't be envious and spiteful. Be curious. Jim Roh used to say, look, replace your envy with curiosity.
Yeah.
And it was a simple line, but my God, is that good?
Yeah. That's why I chose to do what I'm doing, because I saw other people that did it, and I'm like, why can't I? I'm willing to bet on myself. But you have to have that confidence in, ego has a negative connotation, and I don't necessarily think it is. It's part of Freud's philosophy.
No question.
But I think when you take ego past the line is when it gets bad, and that's when the envy comes and the jealousy comes, because you let that ego start driving your decisions. Like confidence drives my decisions. I decided to build a law practice by myself, not with other people, as part of it, but because I had the confidence in my ability, and the confidence in my personality, and the ability I have to make relationships, to build relationships. That's what I built my confidence on. And my name's on the firm. Does that make me egotistical? No. And some of my friends may call me egotistical, but I don't give a shit, because I want to be an inspiration to others, to say, look, I grew up in Newcastle. I grew up very low middle class. My mom worked her ass off to get me where I am. My stepdad's amazing. He got me to where I am. My family was, such a big inspiration in my life. I wasn't handed anything. I didn't come from anywhere. I did it. That means anybody can.
Right.
And people need to look at it that way instead of saying, well, fuck you, you have all this shit, like you're an egotistical prick. No, that's not the case. I'm confident and I built something and I'm showing you that you can do it
Absolutely
too.
right.
And that's where people go wrong. Like they let these negative, people like negative. People like the negative emotions. There's something about it. I feel like fear, jealousy, envy, like that's the shit that really, for some reason, sits in a person for longer than like you can be happy for 5 minutes, you can be pissed off for 5 days. I feel like people have this tendency to carry the negative emotion longer, and that's the problem in this country. And that's why envy's here. That's why people let ego get too big. That's the problem, I think.
The envy thing always puzzles me because it's so. Is it rooted in? I used to believe, Rocco, it was rooted in laziness. I used to think that people seeing other people do things and would bash them. They got all the breaks, or there's something happened, or a family member gave them money, whatever the cause was.
Yeah.
But that was kind of rooted, in little mean-spiritedness in there, some spitefulness. But then I came to believe that maybe they're lashing out in a way because they know it takes work, and they might even believe they could do it too.
Yeah.
But there's that inherent laziness in that they love the ease of their life.
Yeah.
So instead of enjoying the ease of their life and being content with this is what I'm choosing to do, they're somehow internally embarrassed, maybe
exactly right.
to themselves, and they use that as a weapon, which the average achiever doesn't really care. I'll tell you this point blank.
Yeah.
The mature, average, achieving person doesn't give a shit what you think.
Yeah.
They don't care. Yep. They probably struggled with it earlier on when they got their success. They had to figure that out.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Absolutely.
But eventually they get to the point where they don't care because they're going to keep on achieving and doing their thing.
Yeah.
They have another mountain to climb.
Yes.
They're not worried about pissing you off.
Yeah.
And they would actually feel kind of bad that, you would be pissed off at them for no reason. They don't care.
Exactly right.
So you stewing about that is only hurting yourself.
That's exactly right. Like, and your point is exactly on point, where it is almost that, because I believe anybody can do it. And the people that have that envy, it's like they know in their mind they can, but they know what it takes to do it and don't want to do it. So it's easier for them to just lash out at someone and blame someone else. The big equalizer is, and I say it in my book, the equalizer is hard work.
Yeah. It's passion.
Yeah, do the work.
Absolutely.
Do the work. And to your point about envy, you're 100% right. Like, people know they can do it. They also like the comfort of their life. So envy just makes it easier to justify.
Which is okay.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
I have friends from, like yourself, friends from all different walks of life. And some of the most happy people I've ever known have been handymen. The guys that come and work on houses, they make their own schedule. They're working outside a lot of times. They're easygoing. They make money this month. They don't make money next month, but they manage their life fine. And they're some of the happiest people I know.
That's it.
They're not envious of anybody.
No. And life should be about finding your happiness.
Absolutely.
Not looking at my life and being unhappy because of it.
Yeah, and I would hope that as we go through our lives, we mature enough to get to these points. I would hope in my 50s I would be doing it, and I'm a work in progress, but my goodness, life is just too damn short. I will tell you, point blank, I did a social media post a couple days ago. I'm always looking for monumental moments in my past, things that were game changers, because I think when they happened, I wrote about them, but I never really thought about them.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just thought about hearing Rohn's words back in '97, and he had one of his famous speeches, and I was listening. I mean, really listening, not like distracted at that moment. And he said the following. He was saying is, the major question to ask yourself on the job is not what I'm getting here. The major question to ask yourself on the job is, what am I becoming here?
Yes.
Now, we hope that people are growing experience in understanding the interaction with people and how to deal with different kinds of people and different kinds of products. The other aspect of that is, are you becoming someone that you're not happy with?
Right.
In my circumstance, I had a wonderful job, decent company, good pay. I wasn't becoming anything that fed my soul, man.
Yeah, same here.
That was the turn to entrepreneurship for me. So that was a pivot moment for me where it wasn't that I didn't like or wasn't comfortable, but I knew I was unfulfilled.
Yeah.
And it was that moment where I let the words of the good words of someone else trigger me in a good way and spur me on to something different. So that was a moment for me. But that being beyond the words, would you not agree sometimes if we're not receptive at that moment to listen, it's not going to do any good?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So there's two components to that.
Yes, you have to be. You absolutely like there's been moments in my life where I look back, I'm like, I get what that was about, and you had that moment.
Absolutely.
And and I love what you just said, because that's it, and that's what I try and articulate to people. It's, it's about becoming. Like I always say to myself, last year I was making less money than I am this year. I said to make the money and to do what I'm doing now, I had to become a different person.
Right.
It's always about becoming the person that can do what you want to do. Like that's how I believe to be an entrepreneur, you have to become an entrepreneur. To be successful, you have to become a successful person. To be a speaker, you have to become a person who knows how to speak. It's about constantly evolving as a person. And too many people, when they get stuck in that ego and that envy, they're just stuck. They don't grow. They don't become, because you have to understand to find your happiness in life, to find that bliss, you have to become the person to find it. And people just don't do it because it takes work. It takes self-reflection. It's ugly. Like there were years where I cared about what people thought, and it was ugly. Like I didn't like who I was. But as I evolved, like I cared less and less and less. And I know the path I'm on. I know what I want to do. I know the person I want to become next year, 5 years, and 10 years from now. I'm not a perfect person. I never will be. I'm very flawed as a man, and I'm okay with that. But I know my sole goal in life is to become 1% better every single day. And that's how you find happiness. It's not about money. It's not about building all these things. It's about becoming the person that can do that.
So the folks that do get sucked up into the jealousy game, and it's about the outcome. It's like the trinket. It's trinket based. And Rogan used to say to me as well too on a Jim Roh kick recently. Sorry.
That's okay.
But it was such powerful words at a time that I needed to hear it. He also used to say, become a millionaire. Yeah. Because not for the money. You'll make more than that. Yeah. But it's what you will become while you're earning that money.
It's exactly. Yes.
The pursuit of that goal.
That's it. It's all about the pursuit.
And see, I think that's where I think a lot of people wanting to go into entrepreneurship need to understand, need to live and understand and thrive with the journey to that goal. Don't ignore that. Don't be so soul focused on that, on getting there, because you're going to get there and you're going to look back, wow, I just mentally wasted, cognitively wasted 3 years of my life getting here, and now I got this thing, and it's really not that fulfilling, because the fulfillment was the journey there.
Yeah. Your goal should be a moving target in my mind. They're like a guiding light, and it's that North Star I'm looking at. The journey's the most important, because that's where you grow and become the different person. So with Jim Roh, I love that quote of his: "Become a millionaire." Because it's not about the money. Like what I'm doing is never about the money. At first, I'll be 100% honest. It was about the money. I wanted to make a shit ton of money.
All entrepreneurs are that way.
Right.
We're all guilty of that in the beginning.
But what happened was I was doing things wrong. The moment I said, you know what, I'm not going to focus on how much money I have to earn. Because my first full year in practice, I was like, okay, I need to make X amount of money to put food on the table. And I was shooting for that number. And I was shitting my pants if I wasn't close to it. I took a step back and I started working with a new business coach, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to focus on that number. I'm just going to focus on becoming a fucking great lawyer and a fucking awesome, just relationship builder. Right. When I did that, my firm quadrupled in size. The money just came because I became a different person. That's what it took. It was take the focus off. The number was still a goal, right? That was still a guide. That's how I measured things. But my focus was on becoming that kick-ass lawyer that people wanted to work with. When I made that the focus, being the best at what I do, and being a person who puts my clients over everything. To me, client service is the most important part of my practice. The law is secondary. If I serve my clients in the best possible way, communicate, that's how you become successful. When I did that, everything change, and it's about becoming that person.
No question. And if the concentration is on the benefit of your clients, the service of others, and you keep doing that as the focus, people will line wheelbarrows of money up behind you and follow you along.
Yeah.
Money always follows along, right?
And
it always comes when it's not the focus.
Right, and so many entrepreneurs forget that. They get to a certain level. Like, I don't care how big I grow as a law firm, my clients will always be first. And I consider every single one of my clients a friend, and I want to do what's best for them, and I'll always go above and beyond. But I had to become that person that understood that logic, because at first I didn't. I was in the law to be a lawyer and to make money. It's not about it. It's about serving a client.
And that's the picture that you just described. That is the picture that someone on the outside looking at you and being envious of the things you have, or how you carry yourself, or what they perceive your life is, which might not even be reality.
Yeah, my life's a shit show most days.
What they perceive it to be.
Yeah.
They're seeing what they perceive as the end result.
Yeah.
And not the concept, because entrepreneurship and doing business in this country is a journey, and there's a concept there, and each part of the concept has its own importance. It's not you do this, you end up with this big trinket.
Yeah.
And our youth are kind of skewed a bit with Instagram and the rest of it now because of, I won't just say media, but just the way we exploit our rock stars and our hip hop stars and our actresses and actors. We exploit them for our own. It would be wonderful if they were going to be the carrot that was going to cause you to do great things in your life. Yeah. But oftentimes they're looking for immediate gratification. We want to be like them.
Yeah, that's right.
Quickly, like tomorrow. And nothing works that way.
No.
The concept of entrepreneurship is segmented in a journey. It isn't overnight.
No, it's
Instagram star with 6 million views, right?
No.
I mean,
it's it's the hardest thing you'll do. I mean, there are many days where I'm just like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. and that's okay, because that's the journey I took. And I feel like, coming back to your point about socialism, right? I feel like if people took a step back and said, you know what? I'm going to take a shot and try something. You can do good in the world by becoming an entrepreneur.
No question.
You can make the money and put in the work and do good. It doesn't have to be about, let's just create this society where the government takes care of us. We can take care of each other. And, part of my goal in life is to create a legacy for my kids.
Of course.
And to do good things. I have a long way to go, but that's part of being an entrepreneur and becoming a different person. I think if more people would just, I encourage everybody that listens to just take a step back, assess your life, and ask yourself this one question. Am I trying to be better every day? Whatever that better is. It could be a better dad, a better husband, a better, lawyer, teacher, doctor, whatever the case may be. Am I striving to be better? If you do that one thing in life, everything else kind of sorts itself out, I believe.
Yeah, the rest will come to you.
Yeah.
I think that's the essence of self-development.
Yeah.
The whole, and it is an industry now, but the essence of where it came from is again, a famous saying is work harder on yourself than you do on your job.
Yeah.
When you figure that out.
Yeah. Most people don't.
No, they don't. And it isn't a bad thing. We just don't think of it. If you're working a job, it's kind of remedial and you get used to it. But if you, for a moment, breathe and say, am I becoming somebody here? Or am I just pushing this paper into this machine, and am I doing this all day long? And again, some people are okay with that.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. That's your happiness. That's your bliss.
Absolutely. But
we all have different levels of it.
But you won't know unless you ask yourself the question.
Yeah.
And for those who never ask themselves the question, there could have been a lifetime of opportunity that never comes their way. Before you leave, I always get you sidetracked.
No, that's fine, man.
How are you enjoying this very unique baseball as a fan? How are you enjoying it on TV?
I hate watching baseball on TV, to be honest with you.
Really?
I'm not I'm a Red Sox fan, so very rarely do I get to watch a Red Sox game on TV.
Yeah.
Now, when they're on, I'll watch them. I love, and my good friends from law school and college, we go on a trip every summer to go to and we're not doing that this summer, obviously. So it breaks my heart, because the point of baseball is to be there.
I agree.
The energy. It's going to be hard.
I agree.
I may have to start betting on games just to make me watch them, because it's It's hard, man.
One of the things that I always enjoy the past 4 or 5 years, or maybe even 10 years now, MLB TV has been around. The technology's amazing. So I would watch the A's game late at night. Yeah. So when I was done with the day, their game would start at 10, and I'd usually fall asleep somewhere in the 5th or 6th inning. But that was the way I wound down, and I enjoyed it. And I did it through the exhibition games here, and I just can't. I'm going to do it because I'm a fan.
Yeah.
But boy, it's like I noticed something on the players' faces too. Something's missing. I'm not saying they're not trying hard, but there's just something. They have nothing to feed off of. Like
there's no energy.
There's no energy.
Exactly. It's like practice.
They're reflective of that fact. Their 100%. Facial expressions. I was laughing with a buddy of mine. They might as well put masks on them because there are no facial expressions. It's really. It's different. Now, maybe that's going to change as this goes along a little bit, but the whole, Oakland's putting the, did you see they're putting silhouettes of the fans in the...
No, I didn't see.
You didn't see that? No. Oh, I got to send you a video clip.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Their season ticket holders, they got a life-size cutout of them and where they sit, and they put them in the stands.
That's amazing.
Freaky. But they're all pumping in music now. Yeah. But they're acting as if the fans are still there. And I think there's even an announcement, but it's more eerie this way. I think pretending the fans are not there, by having the music and having they're pumping in crowd noise for the benefit of the players.
Well, I mean, think about it.
It's insane.
Professional sports are entertainment by nature,
right?
And when you don't have fans to entertain, you're basically just practicing. And it's very hard to get excited about practice.
Very, very well put. It's like a rock band going out and doing a virtual concert. Like, could you imagine Kiss setting up that stage, putting that war makeup on there, and they go out there and there's like 7 cameras in front of them and no one in the audience? Like the stadium's empty.
Yeah.
Like part of the experience of a great musical band is that feedback,
the
energy from the audience.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine.
I never realized like how much I missed concerts. Like I don't go to a ton of concerts, but usually once a summer we'll go to one, and it's just like, man, that's not happening in baseball games. Like that, the whole point, like I said, is entertainment, and it's just and that's why I hope to God football, and then next hockey season at least they have fans, because I don't know how people won't watch.
The hockey seem to get their shit together better than the other sports.
Yeah,
I was surprised because Bettman's Bettman, but I'm just saying.
I mean, hockey, they just don't fuck around.
No, they don't. Yeah, they really went at it. And they were. I think they were out. They were ahead of all the other sports on the testing, and they had they had all their ducks in a row. They were going to do this season.
Yeah.
So I was pretty good to see that.
I feel like hockey players too. They're more a brotherhood.
Yeah.
So like, we're all just going to do, whatever we have to do to get this to work, we'll make it work.
Well, that's an interesting point. So let me ask you this. One of the things, too, about this is when they travel now, they have to stay together.
Yeah.
But hockey players kind of did that anyways.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
So where your basketball players and your baseball players and football players are not real happy with, when they travel, they can't go out to dinner and do these different things. Hockey lived in a commune anyways when they were like a traveling like horde of band of athletes.
It's a different type of athlete, I believe. Hockey players are just a different animal. It's more about because they're beating the shit out of each other. A lot of basketball players and football players, they're prima donnas.
Yeah,
like they think they're at this level of.
Well, it's more about the eye.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's not baseball, basketball. Football.
Hockey's a team sport. I mean, you have the standout players, obviously, but hockey, I believe, is really a team. It's a team wins. There's no superstar that gets it done. I mean, there are superstars on teams, but baseball and football and basketball is just a different type of player.
Solidified more, and those are also that we can go back to philosophy there. That's more of a Canadian philosophy of life as opposed to an American philosophy. Like the Americans are a look at me. At least in 2020, would you not say we're definitely a look at me people?
Yeah.
And the Canadians, there's an element of that, but I think that it's just a different philosophy.
It really is.
If you go back decades and decades, it's more apparent than it is today, but it's just a different way of life.
Absolutely.
My friend, this was amazing.
Yeah, always, man. I appreciate the opportunity every single time.
Yeah, this is going to be good, and hopefully the next time you're in won't be too long from now, and hoping we're going to see some break here in southwestern PA. And find some normalcy.
Yes, absolutely, my friend.
Good talking.
Same here, man.
Friends,
appreciate it.
We are out.